Yeah. If worst comes to worst, what we can do. Yep. So that's how it looks, because we're up in the top corner. That's how it's going out. Shall we do that again? Well, Eddie skate, each share stood as the whistle loudly blew, with his eyebrows fixed, lips set tight, the tiger's all fed too. You can hear the clicking of the shears as through the wool they glide. You see the gun already turned, he's on the whipping side. It's a lot of Lachlan tigers, it's plain to see we are. The ringer goes on drive, and as he loudly calls for tar, the scene it is a lively one, it ought to be admired. There's never been a better board since Jack the Gun expired. Bit over a minute. 2 minutes. I have a pair of Warden paints, they are bright and new. I will rig them up and you will see what I can really do. For I've shone on the riverine when I shear them by the score. But a terror such as this to clip I never seen before. It's a lot of Lachlan tigers, it's plain to see we are. The ringer goes on driving as he loudly calls for tar. The scene, it is a lively one, it ought to be admired. There's never been a better board since Jack the Gun expired. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for tuning in to Love Ballarat. It's a place where local performers and musicians present Ballarat's rich culture and history. We are the Drongo and the Crow, and we sing songs of long ago. I'm Leon Conway, my learned colleague here.
Good evening, Mark Russell.
And tonight we'll be presenting some songs and verse from Ballarat and the adjoining Rhodes area of Hungary. Now, part of tonight's thing is if you have any questions about the material that has come up in our presentation, please type it into YouTube as we're going along, and we'll endeavour to do our best to answer or
make up something convincing
at the end. Our magic lantern operator this evening is Libby, the library lady. Thank you, Libby, for being such a wonderful sport. Shall we get going?
Probably time to.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, let's go to the 1850s and Main Road, Ballarat. Now, the rebellion was only a few years ago, and Ballarat has become more settled and less wild. Well, slightly less wild. McLaren's Boxing Saloon, one of the big attractions on Main Road. Just down from Bakery Hill. Now, there are thousands of diggers working their claims on the hills, and there's a hotel on every corner. And along the street, there's another hotel for every 2 shops. The diggers are cashed up and looking for sport. Now, the Charlie Napier Hotel has opened, honouring Sir Charles Napier, the Commander-in-Chief of the British Army in India, who died in 1853. Now, it's a substantial building for the time, with bars, accommodation, a bagatelle room,
Bagatelle room.
and a hall for entertainments. Now, one of our entertainers is a local lad, William Coxon, who's only 16 years old. Now, he writes and sings about the place he lives in and the people he sees. He's a sensation, Mr. Russell.
A sensation, you say.
So I do. And he's a big draw card for the Charlie Napier. Now, it's not long before his name is appearing in the daily newspaper advertisements, along with the more established acts and bigger names. Now, he was a prolific writer, even at such a young age. Could we borrow your tonsils, please, for a couple of verses of one of his
poems?
Yes,
Poem?
please.
All right, then. So here's one of, what was his first name? William.
Mr. Coxon.
Mr. Coxon. Mr. Coxon's poem, The Ballarat Man. There's a place that bears a well-known name. It has a township and a flat. It's first in all colonial fame and called Old Ballarat. There are other goldfields, Castlemaine, the Ovens, Bendigo, but the Ballaratians, it's quite plain. Then they by its side can't show. It's a thing to be proud of. Deny it who can, if you're able to say, I'm a Ballarat man. Then Castlemaine so neat and clean, but upstart, poor and slow. Its digging's no good, now I mean, being worked out long ago. Yet Castlemaine, used up, stale, flat, has a metalled road to town, whilst twixt Geelong and Ballarat, there's scarce a stone laid down. It's a vile injustice, deny it who can. It raises the blood of a Ballarat man. Those gents in Melbourne do this grand and poo-poo Ballarat. But we ought to make them understand we don't believe in that. If you think what I have said is true, that for complaint there's cause, just give me as you used to do your hearty kind applause. I'll try all I know and do all I can to gain the good wishes of a Ballarat man.
Oh, beautiful work.
Nice
Thank you. And
poem,
there's the applause you were calling for.
Thank you. I'm desperate for it.
Well, that's one of Coxon's early poems, but he's certainly showing a lot of promise with the words there. Now, we know these songs from all that time ago because he was way ahead of his time and he had his merch situation sorted. Yeah, so he had this book printed in Ballarat and on sale wherever he performed. Thank you, Lantern Lady. Perfect. This is Coxon's comic Songster. It's full, as it says, of pungent parodies, quaint quizzicalities, odd oddities, local hits, colonial sayings and doings, and etc. and etc.
Just out of, are there any oddities that aren't odd? Just out of interest.
I think he's just emphasising
I
how
see.
odd
I see.
they were.
He liked words.
He was a terror with the words. Now, let's go forward. It's a year later, and he's heading towards top billing. And the Charlie is expanded. Now it's a theatre, or it has a theatre with graded seating. Now, here's one from the Songster about used car salesman. Sorry, I mean used horse salesman. This is the Ballarat horse auctioneer. When a new chum arrives first upon Ballarat, he's colonially speaking knocked in a cocked hat. By its size and its business, its deep leads and gold, its cabs, cars and steam engines, stores new and old. And if he walks down the main road at noon, I'll warrant his nerves are astonished quite soon by the swells and bell toppers, the girls, pretty dears. And lastly, it's horse bazaars and auctioneers. You first see a great crowd all standing about the gates of the horse bazaar, short, tall and stout. They all wear flash Bedford cords, old cabbage trees. Big whips and riding boots make quite the cheese. They sum up the points of each horse that's brought out and straight to the nearest bar go in and shout and blow of a mob that they know's coming down and the flats they picked up at the races in town. The auctioneer stands on a little square box and with his whip's hammerhead each lot down knocks. He asks if you're all down. He says I must sell, though whether it's you or the horse I can't tell. He'll tell you to notice the action and say he's not seen a beast like him for many a day, and swear though the poor devil's used up and done, he'll warrant him seldom staunch up to 4 ton. He'll tell you he's worked in a puddling machine, though a puddle's the nearest to that he's seen. He'll also say solemnly that in a whim you'll not in all Ballarat find one like him. But if by some poor new chum puddler he's bought, he'll find that for his work he's not the sort, and if in a whim he is put upon my soul, he'll jib and the bucket's sent right down the hole. He'll say that he's good in light harness also, that 12 mile an hour with ease he can go, has carried a lady is warranted sound, though he hasn't a good leg to put on the ground. But if in a dog cart you put this fine beast, if he don't kick he'll turn out a bolter at least. And should some poor lady be put on his back, he'll put her on hers in the road in a crack. Now should anyone here want a good horse to buy, and their luck at the horse bazaar would like to try, by trials in the yards to be not led away, and believe about one half these auctioneers say. If you should get a jib, a rank bolter or buck, sell him, take someone else in, again try your luck. But in buying another one, see your mind clear, you'll be done again by the horse auctioneer. Well, thank you, Mr. Coxon. Now, in the Star of Saturday, 22nd of August, 1857, this advertisement appeared. Now, notice, if you will, the featured song, The Pretty Girls of Ballarat, and on the following Monday, this review appeared in the Star.
The Charlie Napier. The entertainment has been varied by the introduction of a few clever dances by the Wiseman children, under the direction of Mr. Powell, and some tolerable songs of a trifling character by Mr. Coxon. Beyond a facility of utterance, and in time and keeping with the refrain music to which the songs and burlesques are set, we do not apprehend that this gentleman aims at a very high standard of excellence as a concert singer. Although he's been nightly encored, frequently 4 or 5 times in succession.
Hang on, how many encores?
4 or 5 times in succession, according to the Star. It's chiefly due to the matter of his songs and their apt introduction of purely local peculiarities and allusions. So he knew how to get a hometown audience up and going. That we may not be misunderstood, we will state plainly that this new local song, The Pretty Girls of Ballarat, is nothing else than an offensively impudent laudation of and indirect apology for the hundreds of abandoned women now flaunting in the midst of our population.
Goodness.
Hasn't Ballarat changed? It's quite sufficient that the eye is nightly compelled to witness,
How often?
Nightly to witness the assemblage of these women of the town within the walls of the theatre, without disgusting the ears of those who are tempted thither, to listen to music which cannot be heard elsewhere, by songs written in the worst possible taste in praise of a vice too common to need any pointed or marked allusion to attract attention.
Good Lord.
They didn't hold back, did they?
No. But it was beautifully written, wasn't it?
It was beautifully written, but it had a few too many and I can see why Ita's not your co-host on this one.
All right. Well, now, on the following Friday, so only a couple of days after, the Argus in Melbourne, that home of wowzers in Victoria, they reprinted the article in full and added a little bit of gratuitous editorial for good measure.
Here's what the Argus had to say. Poison for the ears. The Ballarat Star has done a good service to the cause of morality by exposure of the following disgraceful incident. Well, they weren't happy.
Good Lord, no.
Upset the Argus.
Well, Mr. Coxon, now his musical career spanned only 2 years that we know of. Now, we know that he died in 1925 after 65 years on the Ballarat Star. And it closed just the year before he died. Make of that what you will. He was a man with a skill for words and a felicity of expression, I would say. And I wonder if he ever wrote his own reviews.
There was a bit of the flavour of him in that one in the start.
It was beautifully over the top and ever so beautifully stated. Now, we've got a little bit of work ahead of us to find the pretty girls of Ballarat.
Do you mean the song or the girls themselves?
Oh, they're just everywhere. And the squashed baby, otherwise known as Did You Ever Send Your Wife to Melbourne? Now, that might be for another time. Well, here's our last one from Mr. Coxon. And we'll be leaving Main Road straight after this one. Now, this is his song about some of the, I don't know, the early 457 visa workers. the Yankee, the Flash Colonial Barman. Since I've been in this colony, I've written many a song of the peculiarities to which each class belong. But if my memory serves me right, I never yet have told of the Flash Colonial Barman of this glorious land of gold. The Flash Colonial Barman who do the things so fine, the fine Flash Yankee Barman you see this side the line. At home, probably in Britain, if in a bar you stray to have a glass or so, the barman doesn't look as if he stood there just for show. His apron's on, his waistcoat too, his sleeves turned up as well. And as he serves you, on my word, he doesn't cut the swell of these Flash Colonial Barmen. You see this side the line, the fine Flash Yankee Barman who once cut such a shine. But here in these large Yankee bars, behind the counter stands a gentleman with fierce moustache and rings upon his hands. His patent boots are faultless, his shirt's without a splash. He's got graceless pants, and round his waist he wears a crimson sash. The Flash Colonial Barman, you see this side the line, the fine Flash Yankee Barman who once cut such a shine. While ordering your nobbler, he up a tumbler throws and catches it, though sometimes splash upon the floor it goes. No matter, another quick is taken from the shelf. The bottle's pushed towards you and you're told to help yourself. By the Flash Colonial Barman, you see the side the line, the fine Flash Yankee Barman who once cut such a shine. Now he's fine on fences, sweet on slings, and juleps too he's great. You'll very often find he hails from New York State. At spiders too he's clever, and to notice do not fail his scientific seesaw when he mixes a cocktail. The Flash Colonial Barman, you see the side the line, the fine Flash Yankee Barman who once cut such a shine. Now, Mark, of course, he has his weakness. And when you see him out, by his side you'll find his lady. And then, my word, won't he shout? He's certain to be all the go, where he attention pays for. With the fair sex he has the most insinuating ways. The Flash Colonial Barman, you see this side the line, the fine Flash Yankee Barman who once cut such a shine. One day a rush breaks out, and then he off goes right away. Puts a place, chances the ducks, whether it might pay. If it does, he makes a pile. If not, 'twon't cause him pain. He'll burst up and go to the Colonial Bar again, and become again a barman. You see this side the line, a fine Flash Yankee Barman, and once more cut a shine. Oh, thank you, Mr. Coxon. He's wonderful.
We like him.
Well, shall we go just down to the newly declared roads district of Hungary, which is very lucky. They had some roads, one or two roads at that time. Now, sometimes songs like Coxon's are written down and they come through the ages. We know the music, we know the words, and we can reproduce them. But something like a lot of the old bush songs have just been part of the tradition. Now, actually, important safety tip: is there anybody here listening? I can see the comments. Anybody here listening from Hungary?
Oh dear.
Does the wireless go that far? Or Dunstown? Okay, nothing's come through. Nothing's come through yet. All right. I think we're able to go now. Could I propose something to you? A thesis.
I thought
a thesis,
never,
perhaps.
never would.
Now, I think in the British Museum, in their collection of antiquities, there lies an ancient clay tablet that counts up bricks or cattle or bushels of barley that aren't going to China or some such. And on the back is indented, "My boss is a bastard."
Is that right?
I think it might have gone down that far. Yeah, something of a universal refrain. Now, around the 1800s, or the mid-1800s, there was a poem published in Ireland called The Galilee Farmer by Dermot O'Ryan. Now, I don't know whether...
Would Dermot O'Ryan be Irish?
He happens to be, yes.
Okay.
Very good. Have you been reading my notes? Now, I don't know whether this poem was the start of it all or whether Dermot tidied up an older poem. Anyway, as the time went on, there were lots of versions with that common theme. And the hero of the poem was a rural worker for hire. Now, I know I'm not speaking out of turn when I state, Mr. Russell, that you've got a set against the working class and the Irish in particular.
I deny both.
Well, would you soil your hands and read us maybe a couple of verses of the poem, please?
Very well. Here's a couple of verses from the Galilee Farmer. One evening of late, as I happened to stray to the county Tipperary, I straight took my way to dig the potatoes and work by the day. I hired with a Galilee Farmer. I asked him how far we were bound for to go, the night being dark and the north wind did blow. I was hungry and tired, my spirits were low, for I got neither whiskey nor cordial. When we came to his cottage, I entered it first. It seemed like a kennel or a ruined old church, a cup of sour milk that was more green than white. 'Twould give you the trotting disorder. Oh dear. The wet old potatoes would poison the cat, and the barn where my bed was swarming with rats. 'Twas little I thought it would be e'er be my lot to lie in that hole until mornings. I've worked in Kilconnell, I've worked in Kilmore, I've worked in Knockany and Shanballymore. At Palace Anikra, you did that to me intentionally, didn't you? And Solihodmore with decent, respectable farmers. I worked in Tipperary, the Rag and Rose Green, the Mount of Kilfeaky, the Bridge of Lee. I wish that I never saw Galilee Town or the sky over Derby O'Leary. I'll deal with you later for giving me words like that to pronounce.
Thank you. Well, let's go back to around the time of Federation. Now, Mr. Banjo Patterson, that man of so many varied interests, was concerned that the old Australian bush songs were disappearing, and he compiled a book called Old Bush Songs.
It was a clever title.
Yes, he was. He didn't waste his words. Now, one of the songs in there was called the Stringy Bark Cockatoo. Very similar in sentiment to the Galilee Farmer. Would you please read us a little?
Roaming about the country, looking for some work to do, I got a job of reaping off a stringy-barked cockatoo. He drove me out in a bullock dray, and his piggery met my view. The pigs and the geese were in the wheat of the stringy-barked cockatoo. The hut was made of surface mud, the roof of reedy thatch. The doors and windows open flew without a bolt or latch. The pigs and the geese were in the hut. The hen on the table flew, and she laid an egg in the old tin plate for the stringy-barked cockatoo. For breakfast we had pollard, boys. It tasted like cobbler's paste. To help it down we had to eat brown bread with vinegar taste. For dinner we had a goanna hash. We thought it mighty hard. They wouldn't give us butter, so we forced down bread and lard. What a whiner.
Oh, well,
wine.
that's a managerial class talking there. Well, it's a beautiful one. Now, what we've got is all the elements. We've got itinerant workmen. We've got miserable employers. We've got potatoes. And we've got the Irish. So where would you draw all those things together?
The Venn diagram of those things appears at?
There's a circle around Bungaree, Dunstown and Warrenhep. And I think we might have one of our viewers might be from Warrenhep. So that doesn't count.
In the event that your solicitor needs to raise this with the Drongo and the Crow, Leon Conway. Address all correspondence to Leon Conway.
Alrighty. Well, let's sing for the people at home. Let's sing The Cockies of Bungaree. Come all you weary travellers that's out of work, just mind. You take a trip to Bungaree, there's plenty there you'll find. Take a trial with the cockies, take it straight from me. Well, I'm very sure you'll rue the day you first saw Bungaree. Oh, well, how I come this weary way, I mean to let you know. Being out of employment, I didn't know where to go. So I went to the registry office, and there I did agree to take a job of clearing for a cocky in Bungaree. Now his homestead was of surface mud, the roof of mouldy thatch, the doors and windows hung by a nail with never a bolt or catch. The chicken laid eggs on the table, such a sight you never did see. One laid an egg right on the plate of the cocky of Bungaree. Well, very early first morning, it was the usual go. He rattled a plate for breakfast well before the sun did show. The moon was shining glorious, the stars was bright to see. I thought before the sun would rise, I'd die in Bungaree. By the time it came to supper, it was just about 9:30. And when I had it eat, I reckon that it was my bedtime. But that cocky, he came over to me. He said with a merry laugh, I want you now for an hour or so to cut a bit of chaff. By the time I'd done my first week's work, I reckon I'd had enough. Well, I went up to that cocky and I asked him for me stuff. And I came straight down to Ballarat. It didn't take me long. And I went straight into Sayers Hotel. I blew me £1.1. Now I'm unemployed. I'm at liberty. And I curse the day that ever I met that cocky in Bungaree. Apologies to anybody who might be listening, like the Frawleys or the Murphys.
Your apology might be too little too late, I fear.
I should have made a note of that, shouldn't I? Well, that was all about Bungaree, but there was a place mentioned in there, Sayers Hotel, which was a place for working men to stay. They had 35 beds. They'd served 250 meals a day. It was just past where the mall is now, on the tiny little bit of Bridge Street, just connects up to Main Road and Victoria Street. And there's a picture on the screen of the shop front, which is the place where Sayers Hotel used to be. It was a wooden place, 2 stories high. It lasted for years and years and years. We know there was a place there in 1868, and we know that it was finally sold for demolition in 1914, which was not too long after Mr. Sayer himself died and was carted out of there to the Ballarat General Cemetery. So he, I think he lived about 40 years in that hotel, over half his life. Now, he was a great Irishman. He was a native of Ireland, and he donated to the St. Patrick's Day festivities, and the football club and the fire brigade. That's just some of the things we know about. Now, he's in the paper a little bit. He gets a few mentions about selling liquor out of hours, but one of the main things that happened, I think, there was a fight in the bar. He told the boys to go out the back and sort it out. Only one of them came back, and well, there was a big trial, and the jury said, well, the jury of, I guess, the defendant's peers
From the fire brigade, the St. Patrick's Day organising committee and the football club, I suspect,
gave him a big not guilty, which dismayed the magistrate. But yep, so not guilty, away you go. So well done.
Good work.
Thank you, Bungaree. Now, shall we? Well, we're right there. Why don't we go back to Main Road now, and let's talk about Mr. Charles Thatcher, known to all and sundry as the inimitable Thatcher.
To all and sundry.
And all and sundry. Now, he was a musician in London, and he headed off to the Victorian goldfields straight away. I don't think playing the flute was paying quite enough for him. And he got to Victoria in 1852. He ended up in Bendigo, and tried to make his fortune. And he made his fortune. Well done. He walked away with £1,000 and an absolute aversion to hard work. So it's hard work and playing the flute he's not too keen on. Anyway, he was walking through Pall Mall in Bendigo, and he chanced upon one of his old chums from London, who said, "What are you up to, Charles?" And he said, "I'm doing nothing at the moment. Would you like to come and sing some songs in my theatre?" And well, didn't that set him off? So he'd been writing about the things he saw around him, just like Mr. Coxon, and he became a local sensation. He, again, now he was pretty good with his merch too. He wrote about 15 books and pamphlets of his songs over the years, and always had them wherever he was playing. So it's a something we should be doing ourselves.
I'm just thinking we're not good at learning from others, but this might be a tip.
Should have the PayPal link going. Now, here's one of his early songs as well. Would you like to read it in verse form, please?
Yeah.
It's about the lawlessness of Ballarat.
Ballarat, and he wasn't kind. This Ballarat's a curious spot. At least I'm sure I've found it so. Bad luck is sure to be my lot, no matter to what part I go. All of Ballarat, apparently, he wasn't happy with. I really do feel quite unnerved. In fact, it nearly makes me sob to think how shamefully I'm served by that disgraceful rowdy mob. On the Eureka, I'd a share in a fine claim upon the lead. We'd bottom, found it was all there. The nugget shaped up well indeed. The water cheerfully we pumped. We made quite sure we'd have a lob. The news got wind and soon 'twas jumped by that designing rowdy mob.
Oh.
And he goes on.
Oh.
Goes on and slags off Ballarat left, right and centre. I got acquainted with a gal.
Oh,
she kept a little sly grog tent. She had dark eyes. Her name was Sal. To visit her I often went. And whilst there one day, to my surprise, an ugly fellow she called Bob slipped into me and blacked my eyes. Of course, one of the rowdy mob. If to the theatre I go, or the Charlie for a dance, a fight begins, and then I know I don't stand even half a chance. Although I try to walk away, I'm sure to get one for my knob. That's him, some cove is sure to say. I'm mauled by the rowdy mob. I've freely spoken out my mind. To do so is my sore relief. This song, though doleful, is, I find, my only safety valve for grief. Although some cove may knock me flat for saying this, so help me Bob, I'm confident that Ballarat is governed by the rowdy mob. Oh.
They're pretty tough in Ballarat.
Yeah.
That's why we're doing this with the safety of a few miles away.
We wouldn't be doing this in front of a live audience.
Yeah. Here's a beautiful contemporary sketch by Mr. S.T. Gill of our man, the inimitable Thatcher himself, performing at the Charlie Napier in Main Road in June of 1855. Now, he toured the Australian goldfields and then the New Zealand goldfields and had a great career for 15 years. And then he up stumps, became a natural history specimen collector and contributed to the collections of rich folk in Europe. So he diversified ever so slightly. Now, there was a gal named Sal in that last song who ran a slide grog shop, and she might have been a bit of a nasty piece of work.
Oh, misunderstood, I think.
Possibly. But
perhaps he had expectations she wasn't prepared to meet.
Well, there was a keeper of sly grog who Mr. Thatcher lionizes in this song. And this is dedicated to all the plucky young women who do things their way, who aren't oppressed by the patriarchy, who push obstructions aside and go forward. Now, I think Big Pole, the hero of our song, was 180 years ahead of her time. If she was around today, Mark, I reckon she would have got a small business development grant from the city of Ballarat and be running a whiskey bar up on Lydiard Street somewhere.
Probably right. Probably. Here's to you,
Big Pole. And if you've got any questions, we've got a few questions have come through, which we'll answer straight after this song. And if you've got any more questions, please let us know. Big Pole the grog seller gets up every day, her small ready tent she sweeps out. She's raking in plenty of tin, people say, for she knows what she's about. Polly's good looking, Polly is young. Polly's possessed of a sharp, clever tongue, an innocent face and a fine head of hair. A lot of young fellas will often go there. Of her, well, they keep dropping in handsome Polly to court. She smiles and supplies them with brandy and port. The neighbours all say that the whole blessed day she's grog selling late and early. But Polly's good looking, Polly is young. Polly's possessed of a sharp, clever tongue, an innocent face and a fine head of hair. A lot of young fellas will often go there. Now, two sly grog detectives that come up from town, they both walk around in disguise, and several retailers of grog are done brown and have reason to open their eyes. Off her small ready crib, they're soon on the scent. Polly's prepared when they enter her tent. They call for brandy, oh, we don't have that here, but you can have a little ginger beer. Polly's good looking, Polly is young. Polly's possessed of a sharp, clever tongue, an innocent face and a fine head of hair. A lot of young fellas will often go there. And she adds, do you see any green in my eye? Do you buy an apple dodger disguise on fly? If it's Polly you nailed, you'd have without fail to get up in the morning early. 'Cause Polly's good looking, Polly is young. Polly's possessed of a sharp, clever tongue, an innocent face and a fine head of hair. A lot of young fellas will often go there. Beautifully played, Mr. Russell.
Thank you, and well done to you.
Oh, well, thank you very much. I was fishing for that ever so slightly. Now, ladies and gentlemen, that rings down the curtain on our presentation tonight. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. Now, we have had some questions come through on the Telegraph.
Is that the case?
We have. And
Libby, the library lady, is reading them from the telex ribbon as we speak.
Very good. Thank you. We have Mr. Paul Michael Donovan, who, he's the man who's from Warrenhip.
Ah.
So well done. I don't know if you ever played footy against Bungaree or Dunstown PM, but you probably would have got off a lot lighter than the great grudge match, which was always Bungaree v Dunstown, the Frawleys v the Murphys. I think, like all good Irish feuds, it goes back over 150 years and nobody knows why. We have, John Shannon, or Shannon, Shannon, says Poison for the Ears would be a great album title.
Wouldn't it be a good album title?
Oh, lovely.
Be like lounge music.
And Justin Hayward has commented that Ballaratians was used way back then.
Yeah, it's been around a while. Did Ballarat have a name before it was Ballarat?
No, I think it was always Ballarat.
Because as Ballarat?
That's an interesting question for our Q&A.
We'll take that on notice.
We'd better get our researcher.
For bringing that on you.
Better get our researcher on the job, because I don't. Well, let's find out. We've Jason Palmer from Bacchus Marsh has just advised us it's just over 8.5 miles from Bungaree to Ballarat.
Is that the case?
So just a quick 3-hour walk. Now, do we have... Oh, and Jason has asked, in the Horse Auctioneer song, there was a puddling machine for a horse to work.
He's going to put you on the spot, isn't
he?
And
what is a puddling machine? asks Jason, the scion of the Ballarat Machinery Club. Well, I'm glad you asked, Jason.
There's a whiff of a Dorothy Dixer about this one.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, a puddling machine was a contraption for separating gold from the Ballarat clay. In other gold fields, the gold might have been suspended in sand, or it might have been later on they were able to take it out of rocks with hammers. But the Ballarat gold was in clay, and so a puddling machine is a grid that goes around in water and breaks up the clay so that the gold settles down to the bottom. Thank you, Jason. Great question. Alrighty, well, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for tuning in. Next Friday and next Saturday, Love Ballarat will be presenting some other wonderful shows for our edification. And we'd like to say thank you to Love Ballarat for inviting us.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to play. Thoroughly enjoyed ourselves.
Well, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and a very good night to you too.
It's good night from me, and it's good night from him. Good night.
Oh, the old ones are the best. He's heading off. Oh, thank you, PM. Ballarat is its Indigenous name. We're gone. Oh, we went 10 minutes over. Yeah.